Watch that and then it's over. I want wow do vote. Shut up, retard. Let's watch that and then wiki free. Okay, last video just to have some European content.
An engine has apparently been out of order. Here at TLDR EU, we've made multiple videos about the wobbly relationship between French President Emmanuel Macron and former German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. But now things seem to be on the up. Since Germany's new Chancellor Friedrich Merz came to power in early May,
Friedrich Merz just said the time for diplomacy in Ukraine is over. Did he? I don't know. Merz is doing a good job. There's a big debate in Germany today, and there's a lot of there's a scandal that the AfD is like speaking like children. They use bad words and stuff. That's like the thing in Germany today.
Relations have improved significantly, with the two leaders agreeing on a new Franco-German push for Europe and publishing a joint opinion piece.
I think it's a beautiful thing. I think, you know me, I'm a big fan of union. Yesterday, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about something for a sec. I just remembered. So yesterday, me, Lisa, the kid, went to the zoo. As we went to the zoo, we met a dad from one of his friends who also has a kid. And I was like, hey, let's go to the zoo together. Yeah, let's do it. So we are chilling with this dad, right? With this guy. And I realized something. And I think I thought about this for a while now. What happened is, when we were chilling with this dad, everything was easier. My kid was playing with his kid. They gave us some room to breathe. I could talk to him. And it just made me clear again. And I really believe in this, that the human race is meant, because we're mammals, like fucking lions and monkeys. We're meant to be a community. We're meant to work together. Back in the day in the villages, you had a baby and everybody will take care of your baby. Everybody working together and stuff. And nowadays, especially now as a dad, with kindergarten, every parent is for themselves. I'm not texting you if you want to join us. We're going to do everything on our own. Everybody is their own little island. And it brought me back to this thing that I really believe in. Communism, in community, working together, liking each other. Let's not be distant with our neighbors. Let's talk. Do you need some milk? Sure, I can take care of your kid, man. Just like being a bit more together, especially with children. It makes everything so much easier. And now pushing this kind of thought on a big scale, I mean, how can you be against a European community of working together, of trying to work, France, UK, Germany, just working together and getting stuff done together? It's a beautiful thing. Why the fuck not?
Times last month, insisting that Germany and France stand united and strong. Their bromance has even earned its own questionable portmanteau in the international press. Merzkron.
I've never heard of that.
So, in this video, we'll have a look at the prior tensions between France and Germany.
Yeah, Brexit was terrible. Made me very sad, I gotta be honest. Brexit was it's such a step backwards, man. Terrible.
Germany, and why the relationship is now improving.
I feel like Merz is doing well. People are starting to like him because he's the way he carries himself. He doesn't have any scandals. He doesn't do dumb shit.
Under Macron and Scholz, Franco-German relations hit a recent low. This was mainly because Macron and Scholz had different approaches.
I remember Macron wanted to help Ukraine and Scholz was like, no, right? I remember. What do you think will happen in Ukraine? I don't know. Nobody knows. Thank you, Mar Myrtle. Thank you, man.
Many key issues, from debt to energy. Their most obvious public disagreements, however, were Ukraine-related. Macron and Scholz repeatedly clashed over Germany's refusal to send Taurus missiles to Ukraine.
Fucking terrible, man.
Which could conduct precision strikes deep inside Russia, as well as over...
Scholz was awful, man. What a terrible fucking guy.
The issue of deploying Europe...
And a fucking traitor to his people. The guy should be in prison for what he did with COMEX and what he did there, man. You should Google that shit. That shit is insane. The latest chancellor we had before was super fucking corrupt.
Troops.
Very, very
While
bad
France
stuff.
had sent its long-range Scalp missile to Ukraine in 2023, Scholz refused to send Germany's Taurus missiles due to concerns over potential escalation.
Google
Plus, it would likely require German troops in Ukraine to operate them. The position of Scholz's government caused some frustration in Kiev, but it was also ridiculed by Macron, who said at a press conference in February 2024,
fully agree.
Many of those saying never today are the same people who said never tanks, never planes 2 years ago.
Fully agree with him.
At this same conference, Macron also refused to rule out sending Western troops to Ukraine, which clearly annoyed Scholz, who almost immediately took to X to say, it's clear there will be no ground troops from European countries or NATO. This exposed a fundamental difference in Macron and Scholz.
I think also historically Scholz is the shortest chancellor ever.
Scholz's approaches to foreign policy. While Macron was pursuing strategic ambiguity, i.e. being deliberately evasive about potential actions like sending troops to Ukraine in order to deter Russia without making explicit commitments, Scholz was far more clear and cautious in his approach, and didn't like Macron's off-the-cuff idea floating. Discussions over funding Ukraine also exposed another fracture in the Franco-German relationship: debt. For context, Macron has repeatedly
Ludwig Erhard was shorter? I could have sworn I read that he was the shortest ever.
championed the idea of European debt sharing, calling for joint European defence bonds, or Eurobonds, to fund increases in defence spending and support
I will buy that
Ukraine.
Shit. Probably great investment.
However, Germany has always been sceptical of debt sharing at the EU level. A tradition...
Oh, that sounds very deep. I don't know what that really means. That sounds very deep.
Merz is also wary of debt sharing, having recently ruled out joint debt at the EU level.
What do you think of Merkel's decision? Merkel? Why are you talking about Merkel? What?
For, quote, permanent crises. His recent decision to lift Germany's constitutional debt brake and his approval of the Commission's Rearm Europe programme, which involves 150 billion euros of joint borrowing.
There's things that we made a lot of money and all of a sudden we lose all the money. Corona, right? Corona fucked us.
Suggests he might be more open to debt sharing.
What is debt sharing? I don't know.
Finally, energy was also a big source of disagreement between Macron and Scholz. For years, Germany, along with Austria, Portugal, Denmark and the Netherlands, had opposed classifying nuclear power as sustainable at the EU level.
Which is fully agreeable. Also, how can you? I care about this. Here we go. I'm getting emotional. Green voter. If you really read up on this, these corrupt motherfuckers, these lobbyists, they managed to do a thing with the EU where it was allowed to call green nuclear energy completely green and fine. Which was like the lobby. They were like fucking investing and corrupting. Yeah, it's fucking fine, man. And then some countries were like, no, it's not.
Meaning it wasn't treated on par with renewables in EU legislation. This ideological disagreement over nuclear was reflected in the two countries' energy mixes. France
now Chad's going to go crazy, man.
Of its electricity from
Chad hates when I talk about nuclear power. Chad goes insane.
Nuclear energy, the highest share in the world. While Germany has been phasing out its nuclear power plants and generated roughly 60% of its energy via renewables in
I did not know that. In
2024.
Alter, 60% out of green. That makes me actually fucking proud. I didn't know that. That's amazing. What? 60% from green energy? What?
Merz,
if you ever care about my nuclear power opinion, we did a very cool deep dive into it and really looked at it.
These nuclear reactors in 2023
signaled
that Germany will no longer block French efforts to ensure nuclear power is treated on par with renewable energy in EU legislation. Merz did this partly to clear up the energy dispute and reset Franco-German relations, but probably also to pave the way to push for a nuclear weapons sharing agreement with France.
That'd be nice.
Which Merz is keen on.
That would be nice. It would be a great step. As you know, I'm very pro-EU. I love Europe. Bro, if you're European, I fucking love you. I think you're my brother. I think we're all brothers, but I'm very, very pro-EU. And this, I think, is the first steps of union, and World War III doesn't get started by us, but by all of Europe. And we will have a new umbrella against Russia here in Germany. I'm fully for this shit, man.
So
I am super, super pro France, UK, and Germany becoming very, very close.
As you probably guessed.
How can you not?
Merz and Macron's alignment is the most obvious reason for the improvement in Franco-German relations. As we've already covered, Merz and Macron are far more strategically and ideologically aligned than Macron and Scholz.
Doesn't Macron have an election soon and gets fucked anyway?
Merz, like Macron, believes in boosting European industry. Both leaders are pro-business and pro-deregulation, having this week agreed on a drastically watered-down version of the EU supply chain oversight law. And in terms of leadership style, both are similarly happy to make sharp comments and suggestions publicly, even if unpopular. In May, Merz also affirmed...
I'm going to offend Chet here and I'll just tell you the truth. If you check out my nuclear power video, a lot of you people, are not educated on nuclear power plants. You don't know the facts. You don't know stuff. For example, most people that defend nuclear power, and you can Google this shit, don't know that nuclear power plants are not forever. They have, I think, around 50 years of health and shit. Nobody ever thinks about that. Nobody knows about that shit. Says you? Well, I just destroyed you there. There you go.
His commitment to strategic ambiguity, saying that Germany would stop publishing full details of military aid to Ukraine, leading to some speculation that Germany may now be quiet.
I'm not anti-nuclear, never fucking said that. I'm just saying if you're fully pro-nuclear and think it's totally perfect, you're the idiot.
Taurus missiles.
Which proven in my nuclear power video. Check it out. Don't be mad.
France and Germany are now also more aligned on debt and energy, as we explained earlier. But there's also at least two other reasons for this rapprochement that we'll explain now. First, the revival of the Franco-German engine is also partly due to US President Donald Trump.
Yeah, he's kind of uniting us like Mr. Manhattan, bro.
Trump and US Vice President J.D. Vance's comments about Europe and wavering commitment to NATO's Article 5 mutual defence clause have lent new urgency to the EU's defence efforts, which Macron and Merz are leading. In his election victory speech, Merz said the EU needs to achieve independence from the USA and has pledged to do whatever it takes on defence. Merz has also echoed Macron's calls for European strategic autonomy, with the two leaders announcing plans in May to establish a joint Franco-German defence and security council to improve operational coordination. And Merz...
Dude, if I was German Chancellor, I would always go to Paris. I'm gonna visit Macron on a very important diplomatic mission, and then I would just go to nice French restaurants. Hey, Macron, Alter, let's go to the fucking 3-star restaurant real quick, okay? I would, like, exploit my connection to France to go to nice restaurants.
It's now focusing heavily on Germany's rearmament. Trump's return has apparently galvanised pro-EU sentiment in several member states and given new impetus to a reset of France-Germany relations.
Scandal.
And
I will pay for myself.
We might also argue that some of Europe's prospective three-country alliances, like the Weimar Triangle of France, Germany and Poland, which commentators were talking up as a potential replacement for the engine of Europe when France and Germany weren't getting on, haven't really worked out. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk is dealing with a setback after the Polish presidential election was won by the opposition Law and Justice Party. And thinking about the other big European powers, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez...
Eventually bring back Hitler and you will show him this stuff. What would you think?
Annoyed NATO allies by...
He will probably say, the Judeo-capitalist elites have won after all, I say.
5% defence spending target. And Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is seen as too close to the Trump administration to lead on pan-European defence. Ultimately, it's very early in Merz's tenure, and there remain sources of disagreement between France and Germany, most notably debt sharing.
Hitler.
While they've started off on the right foot, the relationship's longevity will also depend on how the France and German domestic political situations develop.
These four have so much responsibility, man. You're pressured by Putin, Trump, and China, and you have these four guys that change every 4 years. It's a lot of pressure, man. These guys need to really get their shit together. It's a very historical moment, man.
Years.
How old is this? 2 days ago. Shit, I kind of want to watch that. It's still early yet. I want to watch that. You guys know I like to do Germany content since I'm a Deutscher. Okay, one. Why Germany is rebooting its economy? It's a weird question. I mean, I feel like a country wants to always have a good economy. It's like a natural thing.
It takes its foot off the debt brake as the Bundestag agrees on a fiscal bazooka of infrastructure and defence spending.
Germany is doing what would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. It's stepping away from the strict rules it once wrote for Europe.
Important though, I think the thing with debt breaks is they're actually kind of good, I think. On the short term, they hurt. You lose investments, you don't grow. If you take debt, it works. But everyone in this chat that can count to 10 knows that debt one day comes around. And there are certain people talk about how in 2050, 2060, Germany is going to pay the price for this. We're going to have pretty crazy debt and the interest rate will be very heavy. I just want to always raise the sentiment, hey man, it's nice that we don't have a debt break anymore. Germany's going to grow again, but you should always think about there's also a negative aspect with that.
Within weeks of being elected, Germany's new coalition government, headed by the conservative CDU under Chancellor Friedrich Merz, announced a historic fiscal package. It promised to loosen spending rules.
They really was very restrictive on what governments could do to support the economy.
And modernise a sluggish economy.
This country needs an economic turnaround.
This shift didn't come from nowhere. It was the product of years, even decades of unresolved economic strain, from industrial slowdown to energy cuts, rising global competition, and politicians often too cautious to act.
There were no reforms under all this.
You don't understand balanced sector economics if you worry about the debt in Germany and USA. I trust people that have a bit more in their head than you, and I was reading stuff like that future generations will have to pay for these interest rates. They will be a bigger part of the overall budget of the country.
16 years with Angela Merkel, and in the end, we are actually witnessing the result.
We just saw today on stream that 11% of the yearly budget of the US goes into interest. If you think that's cool and fine and not a problem at all,
of that period now.
Germany's last government, led by Olaf Scholz, had also prioritized these reforms, but struggled with getting them over the line.
And now we have to start tackling our structural crises that accumulated in the past. I think it goes much farther than even having to adapt only. I think we have to reboot, and we will need a new model because a lot of things have changed.
So why now? Why is Germany taking this risk, and how could it impact the country?
What happens if a country refuses to pay debt? That's a great question. I have no idea how that works. They almost defaulted in 2011. They almost did default, but they just raised the ceiling.
To understand that, we need to go back to the 2008 financial crisis.
Which only one guy, one medium manager went to prison for. I want you to fucking understand that, chat, as you become a socialist on this channel. 2008, these gambled with everyone's money, and they fucking lost it, and none of them went to prison. They got bailed out by you, the fucking taxpayer. You fucking bailed them out. Insanity, 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 utter insanity. Utter insanity. Occupy Wall Street, man. Burn it all down.
This stretches back to this point in history when the global financial system nearly collapsed. While the crisis began with the US mortgage market, the effects were far-reaching. Europe was hit hard, and Germany's economy was feeling the impact.
Not a lot of people remember is that Germany was one of the worst affected from the banking crisis because a lot of these German state-backed institutions did have a lot of exposure to subprime in the States because they wanted to shore up.
That's not true. You can't go to Wall Street anymore. It's locked out. I don't believe you. You can't access Wall Street without demanding permission.
Their profitability. And of course, with the crash of the subprime market, they crashed as well.
Yeah, which they crashed deliberately. They knew what they were doing, these cunts.
The crisis knocked Germany's confidence. Despite being home to some of the most influential companies in the world, Volkswagen, Siemens, Adidas and SAP to name just a few, this was a warning that even Europe's largest economy wasn't immune to the issues lying beyond its borders. In response, German policymakers implemented a new fiscal rule known as Schuldenbremse, or the debt brake. Franziska Palmas is a senior economist focused on Germany.
The debt brake is Germany's national fiscal rule. Its main aim is to prevent the government from taking on too much debt. It was introduced...
Since 9/11, access to Wall Street has been restricted for security reasons, but this doesn't necessarily indicate shady activities. The restrictions are primarily about safety and preventing potential threats. I can't understand that, though, because you would think someone is going to try to bomb Wall Street.
Just after the global financial crisis, because actually before then, Germany had been running fairly large budget deficits and its debt ratio was increasing. It was really felt in Germany that there needed to be some form of rules that basically prevented governments from continuing to run fairly large deficits and cause the debt ratio to keep rising.
The rule put a strict limit on how much the federal government could borrow, even when business was booming, stating that the budgets of the federation and the lender shall in principle be balanced without revenue from credits. And for a while, this discipline seemed to pay off. Germany weathered the Eurozone crisis in the early 2010s, building its reputation as Europe's economic rock. In 2014, the country's finance minister proudly presented a balanced budget for the first time in 45 years. But underneath, cracks were beginning to show. In December 2021, Angela Merkel stepped down after 16 years in office. At the time, her tenure was widely celebrated. She was credited with growing Germany's influence and successfully leading the nation through several global crises with her pragmatic approach. But critics say Merkel's era left key reforms on hold.
Yeah.
She was succeeded by a three-party coalition led by Olaf Scholz and the centre-left Social Democrats, a government that promised fresh ideas and renewal.
They fucked up, man. Boy, did they fuck up. But I think it was mostly them corrupting everyone. They tried to fuck everyone in the ass.
The debt brake, which had been paused in 2020 to allow the country to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, was set to come back into force in 2023. But the crises continued to pile up. The war in Ukraine, energy shocks and inflation all added to the growing list of upheavals expanding the need for public spending. In 2022, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the government secured an amendment to establish a €100 billion defence fund that would be exempt from the borrowing restrictions. All with significant ideological differences, were struggling to find unity. By 2023, Germany's growth had stalled, with its gross domestic product shrinking by over 0.25%. Its GDP then declined again the next year. This was the country's first full-year decline.
Thank you, Dean, man. We're so close to 3K.
It was the only G7 major economy to record negative growth after 20.
But I want to know why. I want more. I want to understand why is that so. What exactly?
Highlighting the depth of the challenges it faces and the urgency for change.
Germany's economy is no longer attractive to invest because of red tape, because of too high energy prices. And
that makes sense.
Companies rather prefer to invest
Colin,
somewhere else.
Yes, Colin, if you send me 5 gifted, I will send you feed pictures. I'm not kidding.
Germany is struggling with higher energy prices than, for example, in some other countries, higher wages, some labor shortages as a result of the shrinking working age population.
Okay, Colin, text me Discord. I will send you my feed. I will do it.
So those are all factors that in some sense weigh on the prospect for Germany as a place to invest.
As for Olaf Scholz, it was ultimately the debt break that would be the...
Been watching you since I was 13, finally got a job where I have a disposable income, so might as well get back. Thank you, buddy, man. If everyone was like you, I'd be a millionaire already. Unfortunately, most of these people are fucking losers, man. Thank you, Dean. Because you ain't a loser, buddy. Thank you, buddy. TommyKay Mods, the best bonds.
Finance Minister Christian Lindner, who led the
that guy was a fucking rat, man.
Refused to loosen spending limits, and so Scholz eventually fired him, saying that he had betrayed his confidence. In late 2024, Chancellor Olaf Scholz's coalition government collapsed.
Germany's three-party coalition has collapsed.
Chancellor Olaf Scholz has lost a vote of confidence in Parliament.
Polls in Germany have opened for voters to decide which party will run their next government.
In February 2025, a snap federal election was held. The election resulted in a significant shift
150 to AFD,
in the political landscape,
man.
with the conservative CDU-CSU securing victory and the far-right AFD emerging as the second largest party.
Germany's conservative CDU party looks set to win the country's election, with the AFD far-right party in second place.
After years of stagnation and facing pressure from both business and the public,
disgrace.
The government voted to amend the debt break and rolled out one of the biggest waves of public spending in decades. At the heart of it is a 500 billion euro...
That's Cologne, right? Yeah. Is that Cologne? I could swear that's not Cologne. That is Cologne, though. That is Cologne.
Infrastructure and Investment Fund.
Yeah.
It's aimed at modernising railways, expanding digital infrastructure, upgrading energy systems and accelerating the green transition. Defence spending is also getting another boost, with new exceptions carved out of the debt break to meet NATO targets.
I think what is very important is having capabilities to spend for defense. That's a prerequisite for a growing economy to have security in Europe, not only in Germany.
What you don't get is, Tommy, that around 8,000 PC, the people don't understand what really happened there.
Help to get Germany out of the stagnation that it's been in the past 6 years or so. But I think the boost to the economy will be quite
Tommy. What is wrong with you people? What is wrong with anyone?
Be focused on the next 2 years or so. After that, I think Germany is quite likely to return to fairly low rates of growth.
Germany isn't just fighting inflation or stagnation. It's wrestling with something
deeper,
an identity crisis. The model that once made it rich based on exports, manufacturing and fiscal discipline is now being tested by a world that no longer plays by the same rules.
There is this culture in Germany of, being very fiscally conservative and afraid of too much public debt.
That mindset went hand in hand with a relentless focus on industrial excellence. Manufacturing became not just the backbone of the economy, but a source of national pride. Anne-Christine Aschleitner is a German economist and has sat on over a dozen corporate and non-profit boards in the country.
Ironically, this whole label "Made in Germany" was meant as a negative label. And so
what is wrong with chat right now? It's like a flood door opened. Can you change the sub goal? I don't want to contribute to Sims with Lisa. What is wrong with you? Have you been to every city in Germany? I want to play World of Warcraft and purge all the retards.
We worked, to get this to this reputation, and I hope we keep it in the future. Manufacturing has always...
I can give you research papers. The fear of debt is based in history. But the entire conversation, like, dude, who starts like this? You said it's hilarious after 8 years Tommy is still a prisoner of Luther and Brunning. You think because something happening in 1930s, I'm scared of debt? Never even have I said I'm scared of debt. I just said the whole time, we gotta be careful of that shit. Like, what, are you fucking okay, bro? What is wrong with you? Holy moly, who is like that?
It's been at the heart of the German economic model.
Don't do that.
We all know the German car industry has been doing very well, but also machinery goods, all kind of equipment, windmills, etc., just to name a few, but also the pharma sector.
Whole nation is scared? Yeah, but you might be right, but how does that have any impact of 2025? Maybe you're right, but the world is much more complex than that right now.
Is one of the biggest exporter in the world.
Like, who
cares? That model worked when global demand was booming. But today, China is making its own machines. The US is pulling back.
That's the thing, we don't export
trade.
Much anymore.
And in Europe, consumers are holding back, making life more difficult for Germany's exports.
The reason why the car sector is struggling is that demand for cars in Europe is shrinking because the population is shrinking and incomes are rising very slowly.
In what way is the world more complex today? That's bullshit. Okay, now we're done here. Okay, now we reached a point where, okay, we're going full retard mode now. In what way is the world more complex in 2025 than 1930? I think we're stopping now. Let's watch the video and then play video games to not go over your head.
Cars last longer, so we change them less often.
Has to be rage bait? It's not rage bait. These people are generally that fucking dumb.
China is now producing cars itself, and it's producing also machinery and equipment itself. One thing that one could have imagined happening is Chinese EVs producers, for example, that want to enter the European market, setting up facilities in Germany. What we're seeing, however, for example, is big investments from Chinese auto companies, for example, in Hungary, where obviously energy prices and also wages especially are lower. And we are seeing, for example, a bit of an EV hotspot emerging there.
You're just not smart enough to understand. Buddy, you just said 1930 is not at all less complex than 2025. Ever heard of globalization? You're completely fucking... And I didn't want to ban you. I didn't want to do it. I want to be nice. But now you keep coming like as of... Dude, you have seriously something to fix, man. Jesus fucking Christ. What is going on with you? It's me, Colin. Send me your feet. I will do it when I'm peeing on my... And I put it on my phone.
Facilities, but also battery facilities.
With the change of China no longer just being a country where you export your goods to, but China rose to be a competitor. Chinese car makers are the true threat to the German car industry. Chinese R&D is much faster than R&D here. Just talk about artificial intelligence.
Research and development.
We have to see that we keep as much of export as is possible, but at the same time, it's obvious the world is changing and we have to reboot.
Germany's new economy minister, Katharina Reiche, told CNBC that adjusting regulations will be key to boosting Germany's competitiveness.
A smart regulation can shape market and can help economy. A regulation which is so tight, so precise on a micromanagement level that hinders companies to invest, that hinders startup to...
You might find the author David Graeber very interesting, anthropologist who helped lead Occupy Wall Street. He wrote a book on debt which discusses a lot of the primitive communism you were praising earlier. What primitive communism did I praise? What is going on? Please write in chat what primitive communism I'm praising. What?
Grow their businesses. Other countries in Europe either went through this process in the past, like Italy.
Is she hot or not? I waited for that. Sorry, I'm betting you. No hate. I don't hate you, man. Nothing personal. But I always think if a woman is in work character and is trying to say educational stuff, we shouldn't sexualize her. It's kind of fucking weird. Like people raising kids together and stuff. It's like, you fucking maniac! What is wrong with you people? The streamer says it's kind of nice when communities raise kids together, which is a common thing in the human race since industrialization. Like for the last 200 years that stopped. Every mammal does it. The human culture did it for thousands of years. But that's primitive communism? What is wrong with people? Holy shit! Fuck! I'm a primitive communist because I feel like it's good if like communities raise kids together. It's kind of a nice thing. Holy shit, you guys are fucked up. Dude! This is not rage bait, you dumb retard. You guys always try to hide everything behind rage bait. I said something stupid. Sorry, teachers. It's not rage bait. These people are real. Have you ever been on the internet before? What is wrong with you people? Alter Schwede, this is insanity. Wow.
For example, the car industry is now very small.
But you wear a red shirt? Okay,
so
you win there.
They went through this process of, shrinking the industrial sector
in
already
the
past.
How do you
And
exist?
Germany also, had a much larger industrial sector.
Tommy, read this book that talks about the primitive communism you praised earlier, of where like humans should work together on raising their kids on like a village and stuff. Are you fucking mental?
Anne Franz
Yeah,
is the
Marconi,
CEO of
Why
one
you
of
not
Germany's
Marconi, piece of
biggest
shit?
auto parts manufacturers.
Germany's economy and Europe's economy are very much built on free trade and on really strong exports. And we
Today in the
believe
Bundestag, the AfD asked the Federal Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs which first names are most common among recipients of the Sins allowance. It's Michael, Andreas, and Thomas. Is that a good thing? Because it's not foreign names.
And services that the German and the European industry can offer to the world is so important for global wealth. So we continue to fight for free trade.
He was disapproving
in the meantime, what the Trump administration has
same with the guy that talks about 1930 economics in Germany. Pro probably watched the video and now wants to share his knowledge.
Implemented is a huge stress on our supply chain because as automotive suppliers can simply not afford to not pass on these additional costs to their customers.
Thank you,
and therefore, in the end, it will be the U.S. consumers who will pay the price, who will pay higher bills for autos and other products.
When Russia cut off gas supplies following its invasion of Ukraine, it hit Germany especially hard. This chart shows just how reliant Germany was on Russian energy compared to its European counterparts. And energy prices soared as a result.
Thank you, UG. Thank you.
That's been particularly tough for energy-intensive sectors like chemicals, automotive, and steel.
We had a very big focus on environmental priorities before the start of the war in the Ukraine. Ever since the war started, the whole topic of environmental investments has actually taken a backseat. Nothing has happened when it comes.
They gotta not vaccine themselves anymore. This is why they gotta wait it.
To hydrogen grid, for example, but that's a crucial element as well for the energy-intensive industry because they cannot just rely on electricity. They need hydrogen.
Despite these setbacks, Germany has made strides in renewable energy, laying the groundwork for long-term transformation. Robert Herrmann is the CEO for Germany Trade Invest.
German energy generation through renewable resources, especially for electricity generation, is about 60% from renewables. That offers a lot of opportunities for companies.
Yeah, isn't that a great thing? I always felt like, I mean, I'm yapping, okay? But if it seems almost natural that the German export of cars is stagnating. China is keeping up. Nobody wants to buy our cars anymore. They make their own. Makes sense. It happens. So you got to fucking do something about this. And I always felt, I even read an article about this, but I don't remember a shit about it, that Germany is a country that needs to export stuff. And if we can't export cars anymore, why not export green energy technology, stuff like that? We need to find something
focus on
to be attractive in some kind of sector.
Products and renewable industry sectors for sustainable future developments of their technologies that they can find in Germany. And we can speak about that and give the opportunities here.
The war in Ukraine also prompted Germany to rethink its approach to defense. In addition to increased military spending, it's also modernizing its defense industry.
Whoa, look at that, Alter.
For
Holy
decades,
shit.
Germany's industrial policy was focused on peacetime manufacturing, but that's shifting.
So I believe that we can use the power of Germans.
China exports the most green energy technologies now. Even they have the most solar panels. Wow. It's actually like a good news for the human race that China is doing so with green energy. They really give a shit, huh? China's flooding the market with that stuff?
Germany's manufacturing sector in general and the automotive industry and us automotive supplier.
Yeah, in Germany, all military cars have a registration plate that starts with Y.
Also to support bringing back the European armies and the German armies back to standards to really play their role in having a very strong and self-sufficient defense system for Europe.
With all of these challenges, it can be difficult to secure the investment needed for German
why? It's the most uncommon letter, so nobody else would use it.
Businesses to thrive. Deutsche Börse AG operates several major financial markets in Germany, including the Frankfurt Stock Exchange and electronic trading platform Xetra. Stefan Leitner is its CEO.
Today we are too dependent on international capital flows, and therefore there's not enough baseline interest. There's not enough baseline investment. Institutional investors are often constrained from investing into German, European, but also international stocks. They're over-invested in cash deposits. German companies have always been very good in adapting. The agility that comes from the German Mittelstand connotation is a very powerful and positive development. At the end of the day, there's only a strength in that and not a weakness. Now, the point about the investment amounts that happen in Germany versus internationally, some of that is obviously a result of the fracturing of the geopolitical value chains that is going on.
But even as Germany grapples with these global headwinds and competition, some of the biggest obstacles remain at home, like slow progress on digitalization and cutting through red tape.
The new government has created a digitalization ministry, which didn't exist before. So clearly they're aware that that's an area of where intervention is needed as well. However, it's much more difficult to say how much progress they will make there in practice. It's not that easy, especially if you have all these established systems, to really change them overnight. Many governments in the past have said that they would cut bureaucracy and increase digitalization, and then very little happened in that area.
Man. You gotta get a girlfriend, my friend.
Bureaucracy seems easy said like this, but then you.
This is my topic: Energiewende and finance sector balances and economic history. That's your topic.
Need to actually, change a lot of processes within the public sector and implement new ones, and implement all of this.
Looking ahead, the new Chancellor Friedrich Merz faces a challenging economic landscape. Despite a somewhat bumpy start, he and his government are tasked with navigating a deeply uncertain future for Germany's economy.
It was the first time in German history that a chancellor wasn't elected in the first round, and it came completely out of the blue. No one was expecting there to be any problems. That said,
I want to defend him for a sec. I think in the beginning they fucked him really hard. Everybody wanted him to fuck up. All the comedians were shitting on him. Everyone was shitting on him. Which kind of is good for him, because they made his level very low. So now he can only rise.
I think it's encouraging that he managed to sort the situation pretty quickly. He got elected in the second round after a few hours. So it could be that was just a blip, and that things will indeed continue more smoothly from here. I think
because I believe we reached a point in Germany and the whole world, whoever wins the election in Germany, they all will get trolled. There will not be a single fucking candidate winning the German election that's going to get respect and everybody is applauding. It's never going to happen.
Because for now, we can be fairly confident that the government will still be able, for example, to implement the big fiscal stimulus, increasing infrastructure and defense spending that they are planning.
In 2025, Germany's economy is expected to stagnate, with the International Monetary Fund projecting.
I'm going to say something else. I'm going to really trigger the economic experts now.
Governments are too slow to digitalize and improve technologically due to grave dodgers hating change and progress.
Thank you, Jet Koala. Now I'm going to say something that will make Chet go insane. So I'm just yapping a bit. We're just yapping a bit. I think Germany not growing GDP is the most futuristic and progressive thing ever. Why? So I'm reading this book. There's this book I've been reading for years now called The End of Capitalism. It's like the scientific thing, what will happen to capitalism one day with global warming and stuff. Blah, 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 blah. I read that book for years now. I always read one chapter and do it again. Blah, blah, blah. The book suggests, or the idea is, how can capitalism and countries grow every year if the resources on Earth are finite? In order to save this planet and reach the next level in this race, we have to understand that 0% growth at some point is okay. And not something that's going to kill all of us in the long term. So I think Germany, ultra progressive.
That the economy
ultra
will
progressive.
Shrink. Still, many are hopeful
it's really good
that the shift
if GDP doesn't grow.
Can spark new avenues for growth, with IMF projections showing GDP growth moving into the positive again from 2026.
I think one thing that is perhaps interesting to watch in that sense will be the budget negotiations. Obviously, the budget
so
was
Italy
a big
is really
area
ahead.
of conflict within the previous traffic light coalition. So, for example, if Friedrich Merz manages to have a smooth process in terms of the budget, that would be a very good sign going forward.
So we have to reduce the energy prices by, for instance, investing in gas power plants to stabilize the security of supply. We will
Alter, you live right next to that? Oh shit, bro. You don't have to smoke on the balcony anymore. You just fucking... And you're oh, damn, that sucks, man.
This energy
damn,
taxes
that sucks.
on the energy price to lower the
Thank
burden.
you, bro.
Next year,
dude, that's where you grew up. But without the fucking... Damn, that's bad. Where is this, Germans? Oh, it's Berlin. It's in the middle of Berlin. That's right in the middle of Berlin. They have these things in the middle of Berlin? Damn. Ugh.
Next year, it will be better.
Fuck Berlin,
thanks in part to this big increase in defense and infrastructure spending that is coming. But
it's
yes,
gas, not
what
coal.
we are unlikely to see is a return to those almost 2% growth rate that Germany had before the pandemic.
I hate Berlin.
The big
I hate
problem
Berlin to
that Germany has is that its population is aging. So, you know, the share of the population that is in over 60s is going to increase a lot. And the population of so-called working age between 15 and 64, it's going to shrink. And it is going to shrink actually quite rapidly. So if we look at the population projections of the European Commission, it shows that in the rest of this decade, the German working age population is going to shrink, depending on the year, by between 0.3 and 0.8% in the worst years.
Bad.
So that's big. And that obviously means you're...
And I don't know how other Germans in chat feel, but I don't feel like they do much about this. Obviously, you need immigrants to fix this. That's just a fact. You need immigrants. And honestly, as a German, as a dad, I feel nothing from the government trying to make us fuck more, to make Germans fuck more. I don't really see much they're doing here to help us.
Your employment.
It's like, I just talked to Lisa about this yesterday. We're now planning a second kid. I now can fuck without a condom. High five, guys. High five. But that kid is gonna be financial strain, man. It's not gonna be so easy. It's pretty serious stuff, right? The shit is very, very serious.
Cannot grow much. So that will be a very...
Who are your favorite immigrants? My favorite immigrants are the ones... That's a deep question, man. You're trying to catch me? TommyKay's favorite immigrants are immigrants that are respecting the German rule of law. They're my favorites. And most of them actually do that.
Very big drag on growth.
There is a lot of entrepreneurship happening. For example, last year we had a massive rise in startups, new applications. So I guess when it comes to the spirit of creating companies...
I just read an article. I always read articles. There was a big summer day last week and people died. People always die on hot days. And there was this article that talks about, and this is sad. I'm obviously not celebrating this. This is a sad thing. Most infant deaths of under 18-year-olds drowning on big summer days, like in lakes or Freibad. Swimming pools, public swimming pools, are immigrant kids. Why? Because two things. They don't learn swimming. In Syria, and they come to Germany, they don't learn swimming. And secondly, these immigrants, Syrians and stuff, they have this culture where there are a lot of people. There's like 20 people going to the swimming pool. And if like a kid goes swimming, no one pays attention because they're so busy, there's so much going on, nobody looks at them. And yeah, immigrants are much more likely, immigrant children are much more likely to drown on hot days than German children, man.
Of putting ideas into work, also in economic models, there is a good momentum in cities like Berlin, Munich.
I think it is really reforms in the area, like, for example, improving the business
I love all the immigrants, man. The food they bring is amazing.
Cuts to bureaucracy, big investments.
I haven't been to a public pool in probably 15 years.
Digital infrastructure, progress probably also in things like the capital market union, also reducing trade barriers within Europe, so improving the single market. All of these measures that would improve the general business environments and make it more likely that new successful firms in areas that
some funds for the next baby.
Thank you, man.
Have a prospect of having growing demand in the future can emerge.
We have to be more open towards innovation and more risk prone.
The richer you are, the less kids you get, even the more educated you are, the less kids you get.
But that is important now in order to keep the pace of the world that is going. We have to make the economic environment more attractive, decreasing tax for corporations and reducing labor costs.
Sorry.
So that is what the new government
obviously it's not false, so you're dumb.
Idiot. Anything that gets older workers to work, more women into the workforce, anything that incentivizes immigration, all of those things.
But if I look at planet Earth right now, I don't see that happening. Capitalism getting more social. No, capitalism is even getting more hardcore now, right?
That would be
oligarchy in USA and stuff.
A big positive.
The gap between rich and poor is growing and growing and growing.
We have to kind of be open for taking more risks. When it comes to infrastructure, the next decade will be the decade of infrastructure investments in bridges, in energy infrastructure, in storage.
I don't fully understand emission and they pay taxes and stuff.
In maritime infrastructure,
telecommunication.
And for this we need speed. We need speed and investments and we need...
But the bridge is already there, they're just fixing it.
Private
capital. New bridges.
There's a lot of hope on the new government, but of course...
Why Americans don't want kids? Financial reasons. I like the guy who said earlier, this is wrong. Age, no partner, 10%, wow. Medical reasons.
First, at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding, what they all do with that gigantic fiscal package.
Germany has rebuilt before, from post-war devastation,
you were good at
from
rebuilding,
Cold War division, from the crash of 2008. But this time, it isn't rebuilding from rubble, but from rigidity. So the question now isn't just whether Germany can grow again,
no partner.
but whether it can change fast enough to lead in a very different world.
I feel like this video yapped a lot. Is the EU sleepwalking to a federal EU?
The best example for if you don't take care of your infrastructure is the Deutsche Bahn.
Yeah, Deutsche Bahn, man, right? They made it...
Haven't been watching Twitch for a few years, but I'm glad to see you still have hair, man.
Thank you, Kieran. Thank you, König. Yeah, Deutsche Bahn is a great fucking example, right? Where you take a company that was private and you make it state-owned. They have a monopoly, and now Germany has one of the most laughed-after train systems ever, man.
Last week, NATO agreed to a new 5% target.
Epstein
Hello,
video.
Today we're talking about the one...
40, okay, sure. I still feel the news a bit. I'm having fun.
And while this was generally framed as a necessary remedy to the threat from Russia and decades of underinvestment in Europe's military...
One thing I wonder about is if every NATO country spends 2%, not 5%, isn't that enough to scare off Russia? Does it really have to be 5%, man?
When you dig into the numbers, it's hard to see how most European countries can really afford it. So in this video, we're going to explain why Europe can't really afford 5%, why this makes further joint borrowing at the EU level more likely, and why history shows that further joint borrowing could well be the first step on the way to a Fed.
Not even close. Russia is way too strong. That is the first time I would actually think that's rage bait. Like, that was actually just you acting.
Technically speaking, the new target is split into two components. 3.5% of GDP is to be spent on core defense capabilities, and another 1.5% of GDP on quote-unquote security, broadly defined. With these targets to be met by 20...
What happened? So there was a guy today in World of Warcraft. He was a horde. And he was in front of me waving. And then he looked over to an alliance character and he said, "Follow me into the forest. Follow me, man. Don't worry about it." And he was probably a stream sniper trying to kill me.
35.
Fucking mentally ill fucker, dude.
For context, in most European NATO countries, defense...
Don't you sometimes wish, chat? I'm gonna say it open, and I don't mean it, Twitch admin. Don't you sometimes wish you knew a hacker, like your dad is a hacker in the CIA, and you're like, "Dad, can you tell me who this Torrent warrior is in World of Warcraft? Can I get his IP and place of residence?" Don't you sometimes wish you fucking had that, man? Oh. Okay, let's calm down.
This expenditure currently sits at about 2% of GDP, and total government spending accounts for between 40 and 50% of GDP. This means that countries will have to increase defense/security spending by about 2% of GDP over the next 10 years, representing roughly a 5% increase in overall government spending. A 5% increase in government spending might not sound like much, but most European NATO members will struggle to afford it. Many European budgets are already under strain, as evidenced by the fact...
That's why I don't get why do you agree to 5%. Didn't we years ago agree to 2% from Trump? Why suddenly 5? Where's that coming from? Who the fuck can pay for this?
That most European countries are running sizable budget deficit.
Alter, Greece, Italy, France, Belgium, Spain, Portugal. Damn, Greece. Greece is fucked, Alter. Greece is fucked.
It's on top of large outstanding debt burdens. Ultimately, this means that most European governments won't be able...
It's like when you arrive in Greece, they don't sell you fucking sunglasses, they sell you little papers with debt. You can buy this debt, you get interest rate.
...to borrow their way to the 5% target. Some politicians and commentators hope that military spending will essentially pay for itself by boosting research and development spending, which will eventually lead to productivity increases in the wider economy. But this feels somewhat optimistic, given that productivity levels have been stagnant in most developed countries since 2008. If this doesn't happen, increases in defense spending will have to be funded by either raising taxes or cutting spending elsewhere. But European governments already have the highest tax burdens in the world.
Highest tax burden in the world, but we still need more money. We still need more. Oh, we don't have enough. Also, da könnte ich mich nur bekotzen, Alter, mit den ganzen Assis, Junge.
Which again are expected to rise as populations age. Spending cuts don't look too attractive either.
Sometimes I'm scared. This is kind of yapping now. This is kind of like nothing sophisticated in data. Sometimes I'm scared that when I'm older, there's not enough workforce anymore in Germany because there's too many old people. So they will start attacking people like me, like the middle class. Oh, we can't pay for the old people anymore. We have to fuck the middle class a bit more. I feel like that's going to happen one day.
European countries are also scarred by their experience with austerity during the Eurozone crisis in the 2010s.
There was a guy at his door as saying, I have something cool in the woods to show you.
Stunted growth and
I have to probably generally stop streaming World of Warcraft. Like, legit. Because they will try to kill me. It's kind of sad.
It had fertile political ground for anti-establishment parties. In countries like France and the UK, the electorate even reacted furiously to shallow spending cuts. And few, if any, European governments have laid the political groundwork for cuts like
they can already barely afford pensions at 35% of government spending. Yeah. And one day they're gonna, you know,
like this. Presumably because it doesn't have to be met until 2035, politicians haven't really warned their electorates that this 5% target will eventually require higher taxes or spending cuts. Instead, they've just blindly signed up to it, done a whole load of triumphant photo ops, and left a fiscal time bomb.
That's what I just said that 10 minutes ago. Why? Why do all of you just go, yeah, sure, let's do 5%. Sure. Zelensky looking like a giga chat, bro.
Down the tracks for their successes. This is why there's a pretty widespread suspicion.
Which one is hottest? Meloni, man. Dude, I never tried to sexualize anyone on the stream, but with Meloni, I can't really stop myself.
For their successes. This is
Orban is very alone.
Why there's
away
a pretty
from him.
Widespread suspicion that this target won't actually be met, and that it's something NATO's just signed up to temporarily appease Trump. With the
that could be. They want to just suck his dick a bit because he's annoying, and then when he's finally gone, they just
intention of giving up on it once Trump leaves office. And it's already sort of falling apart. Spain successfully carved out an exemption, and Slovakia has asked for a similar deal.
Hey, why are they getting an exemption? Because they're still recovering from the civil war? What the fuck?
If Europe actually sticks to the target, then this could very well pave the way for a massive increase in joint EU borrowing. And that's because this is the only other way for the EU to fund significant spending increases. And it's actually more cost effective than doing it at a national level, because the EU can...
Okay, I don't understand this stuff, but debt sharing in the EU will be cost effective.
Borrow at lower rates than the vast majority of its member states. The Commission has already taken a step in this direction with the Rearm Europe programme, which aims to issue 150 billion euros worth of new joint debt to help fund Europe's defence build-up. And it's something that Emmanuel Macron and the EU's top diplomat have been calling for a while now, only to be stonewalled.
The EU is more stable than a single country, so the EU bonds would be like rated AAA and shit like that. I kind of understand that a little tiny bit.
By more fiscally conservative member states.
Will also be a nice step to confederation, yeah.
But this was before the new 5% target, when most European countries thought that rebuilding their national defences meant pushing defence spending slightly above...
Imagine your job is building ammo boxes, kind of cool.
...of 2% of GDP to maybe 3%
I always thought ammo smells
maximum.
Good. It smells good.
Furthermore, the so-called Frugal Four, Denmark, Sweden, Austria and the Netherlands, the 4 EU member states that have been historically the most staunch opponents of joint borrowing, don't really exist anymore. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen explicitly disavowed the group last month when she said that she'd support an increase in EU borrowing to fund Europe's defence build-up. Austria is also mired in a brutal economic crisis, now entering its third year of recession, which means that it won't be able to fund significant increases in defence spending without European help. Sweden will also be more open to joint EU borrowing if it's spent on defence, given that it's one of Europe's biggest defence exporters. And that just leaves the Netherlands, and given their domestic political dysfunction, they'll probably struggle to mount a challenge by themselves. Senior finance ministry officials from Sweden, Denmark and the Netherlands also all...
The problem is if you would ever make an EU debt, the conservatives and right-wingers will market that really badly. What? Now you have to pay for the Greeks? Vote for me. They would probably easily industrialize this
attended
shit.
a secret gathering in March to discuss the prospect of creating a supranational bank, specifically for the purpose of joint defence procurement, which suggests that they're open to a fiscal union if it's cost effective. And, well, history suggests that this could well be the first step to a deeper political union.
Macron serving for over 11 years, so much democracy. Dumb comment, terrible. You should slap yourself in the face, please. World War III, I will ban you until you send me a picture of you slapping yourself in the face on Discord. You're banned until you slap yourself in the face.
Union. Many of the great federal states we know today were created because some crisis forced some politically weak central authority to step in as a borrower of last resort, with the process of later repaying these debts giving the central authority more political power and eventually paving the way for a federal state. At America's founding in 1776, for instance, the federal government, the then Continental Congress, had no powers of taxation and, like the EU today, relied entirely on contributions from member states. Americans didn't like the idea of a strong central government, but during the War of Independence, the Continental Congress had to step in as a borrower of last resort.
I will not show you slapping yourself on stream. It's just
and then it had to assume tax-raising powers to pay off these debts, paving the way for a political union. Similarly, before the First World War, Germany was a patchwork of at least semi-independent states. And the Reich, essentially the federal government, had limited tax-raising powers, mostly involving tariffs.
Thank you.
The First World War then forced the Reich to step in as a borrower of last resort, and then assume the power of direct taxation in the interwar years.
I'm not listening anymore.
In short, a weak central authority takes on debt during a time of crisis, and then after the crisis, they assume tax-raising powers in order to pay back those debts, which the EU doesn't currently have. And this essentially creates a new unified state. We're not saying that this is definitely going to happen. Rather, the point we're trying to make is that the EU's decision to step in as a borrower of last resort follows a well-worn historical pattern that usually ends in deeper political union. To some extent, this is how the EU has always worked, with successive crises pushing the continent towards the ever-closer union originally envisioned by the Treaty of Rome. All of this plays into a broader feeling of chaos in the world.
That makes sense, though. The more you have crisis, the more they come together. So we kind of need crisis in a weird way, like...